Well, let's kick this off. Introduction to Animating with CSS3 in Adobe Dreamweaver CC, and we'll make this whole project responsive. We're going to go through the basics of one of the animation techniques that you can use in HTML, pure CSS development. And here we go. Let's go into Dreamweaver. And I have this animation all preloaded over here in Google Chrome, and I'll click my refresh button, and it's just one image. We've got it repeating, sliding in from left to right 4 times. And this image is 1200 pixels wide by 700 pixels tall, and that will be an important math consideration as we move ahead. And of course, in anything and all things web, you always want to size your images appropriately, and in this case, we didn't make it responsive. We'll do that in a future title. So here we go. Now, let's go into the file itself. Of course, I could have animated that right here by going into live mode in Dreamweaver, same effect. But let's go into design mode and take a click at the code. This is all CSS, and I created an embedded style sheet here. And the code, there's not a lot of code. I have my style sheet up here. I just threw in some reset stuff to get rid of margin and padding that may have showed up. I put the image in a wrapper just for the heck of it, and the slide is in an ID called slide 1. And we'll talk about this in a second. We'll talk about this in a second. Here's the deal. We have an animation, has some keyframes, and look, that's it. Then in the body tag, we've got the wrapper in there. We give the image the ID name slide 1, and there it is. It's image 1 in the images folder. Now, in this zipped file, I have 2 HTML documents. One HTML document is the one that you're looking at right now. The other HTML document is this one, and in this one I commented all the stuff. All the stuff is commented right here, but if you don't want to look at the comments, you can just go right to the other file. And so here we go. Let's just go see what's going on in here. Now, first of all, going from the top of our document to the bottom, when we get down here to the keyframes, and the keyframes, we'll talk about that in depth. The keyframes make this thing happen, but keyframes are kind of new to all the various browsers out there. So each browser needs a separate group of code settings to make this thing happen. And these are called browser prefixes. And I've included the browser prefixes in this folder also. So right, if I go back in here and look at this keyframe, and let's go into the one that is not commented out. You'll see we only have like a few lines of code. But to make this work in all browsers, we would have to say 0% to 100%. Don't worry about what that means, but we're just saying from here to there, make this turn into this. That's all we're saying. But to make all the browsers happy, we would have to use all of these prefixes to make it work. Here's one for Mozilla. Let's go from here to there. Here's one for Opera. Here's one for Microsoft. You know, here's your general keyframe with the name of the animation. It's like 5 different pieces of code. They all say the same thing. From here to there, here to there, here to there, name of animation, same thing. So what we have going on here is at the very top of the page, we're using some JavaScript, and the JavaScript just adds on the appropriate prefixes for all browsers. And this JavaScript is in this folder. It's in the JavaScript folder. And here's what it looks like right here. This JavaScript came from MIT, very reliable. So I'm not going to use any prefixes, and throughout this series I use this same JavaScript file. It's in all the folders with the sample files. So there you go. Let's go back into our comments. So as we start out, we've got this code up here at the top bringing in our free prefix JavaScript file. And we come down here, your basic CSS, but now we get to the ID slide 1 with the animation itself. To make this thing happen, up here where the ID for the image is an ID, and that ID could have been a container, it could have been a div. But here we make up the name of an animation. That's all this is. Slide me could be called Freddie or Sammy. 1 second is the duration. 1s is the duration, how long the animation is going to last. And then we're going to repeat this thing 4 times. And I'm going to, so here's my slide. Slide 1, it lasts for 1 second. That's all, and it repeats 4 times. That's what the thing does. Now, and play with this. I could come in here and make this last for 15 seconds or 5 seconds. Make it only repeat 2 times. Save the file, of course. Wrong. Drop down, save the file. Come back over here. I could be doing this in Dreamweaver through live mode, but I'll refresh. And now I've got it coming in nice and slow. Instead of real fast, it's coming in. And I guess that's going to take 15 seconds, and then it's going to go back and do it again. So here we go. You can change this. I've got it set at 1 second 4 times. And you can go in there and change that and have fun with it. Then in another title, well, when we actually do this, I'm putting the opacity at 1. And 1 is this opacity setting is CSS3, where the lower the value, 1 is full opacity, and down here is you can hardly see it. So here, this is up in our declaration up high in the CSS, but then we come down here into Keyframes land. And notice here we say slide me. Keyframes, this is the name of the animation. The animation has a name, and then up here in the CSS we use the animation. Well, the keyframes are in the CSS too, but up here where we declare the ID and identify the identifier, we say, hey, the animation called slide me is 1 second long. It goes 4 times. So here we create the animation. Keyframes. We give it a name. Slide me 1. And all we do is we're going to say start at 0. Now this is kind of weird. I'm going to go over here into here where we have no comments. 0 actually means where we are starting. 100% means this is the very end. We are done. So we're saying we're going to start here and we end here. Start, end. And what we're doing, opacity, that's easy to explain. We're saying we're going to start at 0 opacity and end at 100% opacity. So we're fading in. Now these little digits over here deserve a bit more conversation. It's not hard, but this first thingy right here means this is the X coordinate. And at the beginning of this title I said, well, the image is 1200 pixels wide. So to get the image to show up at full screen, well, you can see the 0 up here. Up here in Dreamweaver, if we look up here right in the corner, here's 0, here's 0. So if I had that setting at 0, the image would already look just like this. But if it's negative 1200, since this image is 1200 pixels wide, negative 1200 on the x coordinate would put the image all the way over there so that we couldn't see it. So in our code, we're going to start the image at negative 1200, and we're going to end the image at 0, which puts our image right smack dab in the center of the screen. So no big deal there. So we start with our x coordinate here, we end with our x coordinate here. These are the second integer is for y coordinate. We could make it go down instead of from here to there. We'll do that in our next title. And this is for the z coordinate, so you can zoom or rotate with that. Now, as we go from here to there are different ways that we can go from here to there. And that's where animation timing function comes in. Here we've chosen linear. Let's go from here to there in a straight line. But if we take a peek into our other file where we have comments, you can see we have a lot of different options, and you can read through these. Linear, blah, we just did that. Ease, we can ease a thing, slow start, then fast, then it ends slowly, or ease in, or we can ease it out, or we could ease in and ease out. And that's what these comments are for. You can copy this, get rid of linear, paste ease in, ease out. You can even create a cubic Bezier path so that it goes in any directions that you would like it to go. So experiment with those. We're going to just be using linear. Okay, let's go back over here. So that's about it. That's about the scoop. Let's see what I left out in the comments. Scroll down a bit. Okay, the end of that's all there is to it. In our body tag, again, we have the ID. The image has an ID called slider. I could have put the image in an ID called slider or slide 1. So you don't have to really make the image an ID. You don't have to. You could put it in anything that you can make an ID. Usually a div or an image is what I'm thinking. So, and you're good to go. That's how we're making the basic animation. You can come in here and fiddle around and, play around. Make it go from like 600 to 600, or you can go in and change the Y coordinate. Instead of having come from left to right, maybe you wanted to have it to come from out of nowhere into the screen, or start on the screen and come out of the screen. That is how we get the basics done. In the next title, we'll go further into keyframes and how important they are, where the term comes from, and how we can use multiple keyframes.